Hey, what's good, self-direct investors? I hope you're all doing great, and I want to welcome you back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jordan. I'm the mind behind Make More Capital, and today we're coming at you with This Week in Cannabis news from October 24th to the 30th. Now, before we jump in, if you enjoy this video or you learned something, please just leave a like on it as it really helps out my channel. And of course, if you want to learn how to take advantage of this generational investment opportunity, subscribe below so that you don't miss any future videos, and there's plenty of content for you to go back, rewatch, and educate yourself with. I've tried to put all the news and facts in one place so that you can watch episodes over time to learn about the evolution of the industry, identify top companies that you keep seeing pop up, and take advantage whenever you feel ready if you wish to do so. And we're going to start with this news as the U.S. Cannabis Council is pushing again as more pressure is mounting to pass SAFE. And so breaking news, a letter signed by dozens of New York and New Jersey based, and you think New York, Chuck Schumer represents them, New Jersey, Booker represents them, based cannabis equity licensees, so the people that were lied to by Booker and Schumer themselves that want to finally get into this industry, and applicants was released earlier today urging Schmuck Schumer, and the Senate to pass SAFE Banking Act coordinated by the USCC. And so there's a press release down here. I'll put the link in the description. I'm not going to go through it, but love to see the pressure mounting, especially from those that Booker and Schumer promised that they were working on their behalf for. So far they haven't, but it's not too late. And so just wanted to share this interesting one from Gothamist highlighting Schumer faces pressure to get cannabis banking reform through the Senate. Obviously, good to just see people calling him out on it. We've wanted this for 18 months now. He could have done it. Obviously, he's chosen to show by his actions and not his words that he works for Big Pharma as opposed to the will of the American people. So you can grab the link in the description if you wanted to read through it, but no doubt I've been over this many times, so thank you, The Gothamist, for finally calling Schumer out. We need that for more mainstream headlines. And so with that, some big news out of Nevada, so thank you, Joseph Lacerti, who is the founder and vice chairman of Curaleaf, for sharing this news from Marijuana Moment, that a Nevada judge orders Board of Pharmacy to remove cannabis from Schedule 1 under agency's unconstitutional code. And so this could be, again, a big precedent. Doesn't mean much right now, but at any other point in time in the court of law, you can potentially use this to argue that the Schedule 1 classification right now is unconstitutional. So this is a big first step. Again, doesn't mean much now, but could set a big precedent. So link below in the description for Marijuana Moment if you wanted to read through it. But also just wanted to share this from another perspective, as well, I have plenty of respect for Marijuana Moment and all the work that Tom does. Unfortunately, they've been a massive supplier of hopium over the last few years. And so in any given story like this, I do want to just try and share as many different sources as possible to try and help you put the pieces together. And so with that though, Nevada board can no longer regulate cannabis whatsoever, apparently, judge rules. And so in a statement released Thursday evening, big statement, the ACLU said Hardy's, who is a Las Vegas judge, latest ruling means that the Board of Pharmacy in Nevada cannot reschedule cannabis as a controlled substance under any schedule, meaning they cannot try and put it in Schedule 2, 3, 4, 5. They have to deschedule it completely. This could be a massive precedent. So again, doesn't mean much now, but we love to see this ruled in an individual state, which means that this argument can be taken to a higher level at some point. And so links below if you wanted to check those out. So with that, some big news out of New Jersey, again, coming from Marijuana Moment, but just wanted to share it, as is Todd Harrison sharing. Thank you. New Jersey lawmakers approve bill to let cannabis businesses claim state tax deductions as partial 280E workaround. And so while this sounds nice and sounds beneficial for all the MSOs operating in New Jersey, get this quote, as providing access to these deductions may generate more economic activity by cannabis businesses to realize additional revenue. If you're the lawmakers, why would you not want to write this in a way that will guarantee more economic activity by cannabis businesses to realize additional revenue? Otherwise, you're not changing the status quo at all. And so, still early, but a few snippets from this legislation shall apply to taxable years beginning on or after January 1, following enactment, it says, okay? And so if this can get enacted by year end, hopefully it would apply by January 1, but there's no promise in that. So we'll update you on the story as it moves through, but apparently now the measure heads to the Senate for consideration. And so this is, again, the New Jersey Senate, not, Congress, unfortunately, so possibly it can actually get done in New Jersey. We'll see, but I will keep you updated on these stories. But the good news from MJ Biz Daily is that New Jersey awards 18 annual adult use cannabis business permits. According to a news release on Thursday, the New Jersey CRC approved 8 applications for annual licenses and another 10 applications to convert existing conditional permits to annuals. And so I don't know the difference, but I imagine the annual licenses are ones that have been approved by the state, whereas conditional still have a lot to do before they can get full approval. Obviously, if the CRC wasn't so incompetent, we could see a lot more approvals sooner than later, but hopefully we'll get there one day, as conditional licenses are an important step for those new businesses to work on securing real estate and financing, gaining municipal approvals, and ultimately receiving annual licenses. And with the awarding of 8 cultivation licenses and 3 manufacturing licenses, we are setting a good groundwork for New Jersey's cannabis market, according to the Commission's chair. And so the 8 new cultivation licenses are expected to help ease ongoing supply concerns concerns. And so hopefully once they have a lot more cultivation and they can grow a lot more cannabis, then they can open more outlets to help drive the price down and, sell more legal cannabis as opposed to illegal cannabis. While the CRC also approved 297 more conditional licenses, so it seems like they're trying to get the ball rolling, bringing it to 801, the total number of such permits awarded since March, and so hopefully they can get better and faster at approving these as well. Extended the length of time for certain conditional licensees to apply for conversion to an annual license. Apparently increase the social equity excise fee that cultivators will pay for 2023. And so I imagine these are probably MSOs if they're cultivators, not small business owners, to 1.52 per ounce, up from 1.10 per ounce. So of course, want to raise taxes and try and gut the existing operators already in the state. What is new from the CRC? And so while that sounds positive for most in New Jersey, again, best thing they can do is just open more dispensaries to combat the illicit market and help drive more sales. And so hopefully we'll get there soon. But with that, this comes from Bloomberg as the TMX Group CEO Greenlights Canopy's U.S. plans despite NASDAQ uncertainty. And so for my last week's video, mainly highlighting the Canopy news of a new way that they've restructured and apparently are attempting to get into the U.S. We found out that the NASDAQ apparently had not approved their decision. But from my understanding at this point in time is that the NASDAQ objection is more over how Canopy wants to consolidate their financials and not necessarily over cannabis, which I would say is a big plus at this point. And so it seems like the Canadian side has paved the way and given Canopy the green light. Now they're just saying, fuck it, let's see what we can get done and see how the U.S. is going to accommodate. And so there's more here if you want to pause to read. Not going to go through the whole link, but you can grab the link below. But just wanted to scroll down to the snippet from the bottom as a Canopy spokesperson told BNN Bloomberg in an email that its Canopy USA is a novel structure, meaning something new that hasn't been done before, that will help the company capitalize on the U.S. cannabis market opportunity. It's our job to show the value and the rationale here is obviously no doubt. I'm sure they've done their due diligence and spoken to lawyers and regulators and done everything that they can to possibly work around this. And we will continue our ongoing dialogue with NASDAQ to support our compliance with their rules and regulations as we pursue this groundbreaking strategy, the spokesperson said. So again, incremental is better than all at once. Meanwhile, possible legislative changes to allow how cannabis companies can engage with federally regulated banks, possibly SAFE or SAFE Plus in the lame duck session, may allow U.S.-based pot producers that are listed on the Canadian Securities Exchange to at least uplist to the TSX. So not necessarily the U.S. exchanges yet, but the TSX, which is the third largest exchange in the world still. And so that's something worth considering, and so we like to hear that, Mackenzie said. Lastly, while changes to legislation in the U.S. that would actually take those off the Schedule 1 list, and while descheduling is the best thing we can hope for, it is worth noting that Biden's recent announcement in the last few weeks did imply that they could move cannabis from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3 to 5. And while that's not what we want, incremental would be better than nothing at this point in time, and that would at least allow the removal of 280E and other beneficial things. And assuming all other legislation that goes with it, like anti-money laundering and things like that, I'd love if he could be a bit more detailed than just saying things like that, which would allow us to list these companies. I think it would be very positive. And so no doubt, I think that would be. So again, incremental steps in the right direction. We love to see this as opposed to not. And so with that, just wanted to share this view from Jeremy Burke on the same story. In a BNN interview, the TSX CEO said that the exchange is fine with Canopy's deal to get into the U.S., sort of highlighting what we saw in this last story. But here's a snippet. Even if the NASDAQ isn't, Jeffrey said the deal could still pave the way for MSOs to uplist to the TSX. Still a big deal, next incremental step, which is much more liquid than the OTC and CSE. And so again, doesn't mean that it's going to happen really anytime soon, but we love to hear that this is sort of the direction that things will likely be heading in, and we love to hear Canopy, having the balls to make that big move. And so you can pause to read, but a bit more highlighted down here as it's a model that can be used by other Canadian issuers that want to take advantage of some of the same opportunities. And so will Tilray do the same thing, or will we see Aurora try and pull some of the same stuff? We'll have to wait and see, but I have no doubt if they do, that might help get some of the ball rolling and more eyes on this space. As Canopy Growth shares this video, just to sort of recap their announcement and news from last week. So I'm not going to play the video, but just going to share this highlight, as this is a win for us because it allows us to put together 3 really strong cannabis companies in the U.S. under the Canopy USA umbrella and begin to address the $50 billion market opportunity that is the U.S. cannabis market as of not as of right now, it's about $26 billion, but it's going to get there. Sooner politicians can get their hands out of Big Pharma's pockets and their heads out of their asses and start working for the will of the American people again. So grab the link below if you wanted to watch the 6-minute video on the recent Canopy announcement. With that though, news out of NewJersey.com as New Jersey town gets state approval to sell adult legal cannabis. And so good news for Curaleaf as they've been waiting a long time. New Jersey's largest cannabis grower and one of the nation's largest operators in terms of revenue and footprint won state approval Thursday to begin selling adult legal cannabis in Bordentown Township as the New Jersey CRC voted 3-1 with 1 abstention in favor of expansion to adult weed at the 8-month-old dispensary that currently currently only sells medical. And so you can read about why the chairwoman abstained, but fortunately the general vote was a positive. And so once it opens, Curaleaf Bordentown would become the 20th location to offer adult weed in New Jersey. And so a bit more here if you want to pause to read about the story that I mentioned earlier from MJ Biz Daily. Well, if we scroll down, wanted to share this because what didn't get approved on Thursday was Harmony Dispensary's request to sell adult legal weed at its 4-year-old dispensary in Secaucus to become the first nonprofit medical cannabis dispensary to offer adult weed in the Garden State. Why didn't Harmony Dispensary get approved? Gosh, the CRC, they just love to pick the MSOs. I wonder why. And so I didn't end up reading through this, but you can pause to read a bit more about that. Just wanted to share that, why wouldn't you want to try and approve all of the MSOs and give the whole industry the opportunity to flourish? It makes no sense. And so last thing just to highlight, there are currently 19 stores that are selling rec weed, including 2 operated by Curaleaf. So Bordentown, I think, will be Curaleaf's 3rd, but a bit more information and a rundown on all the stores available, who runs them, and where they're at. So link below if you wanted to check that out. So with that, some MSO news as Verano refinances $350 million credit facility with significant optionality to bolster strategic growth plans. And so Verano refinancing existing $350 million credit facility, extending the maturity with a 4-year term, and so refinancing their debt, floating interest rate based on the prime rate and at a current rate of 12.75%. So again, yikes, high like what TerrAscend got, which reflects favorably on Verano given today's rising rate environment. And credit agreement structure provides Verano with the opportunity to obtain up to $270 million of additional debt financing, comprised of $120 million of real estate secured indebtedness, and $1 million accordion and $50 million revolving credit facility. Good to see Verano diversifying their different forms of indebtedness instead of putting all their eggs in one basket. So no doubt Verano likely sees now as the best time to do this, as opposed to waiting until things get worse. Hopefully things are as bad as they can get right now, and then they'll only get better, making this seem like a smart thing. And so more information in the link below if you wanted to check that out. But with that, Verano announces that they will be hosting their 3rd quarter 2022 financial results on November 14th before market opens. And so a little over 2 weeks from now, we'll see Verano along with all the MSOs, but it seems like next week we'll get Green Thumb kicking that off. So love to see as we anticipate how these companies might have fared through these last few months. Well, TerrAscend to host their 3rd quarter 2022 earnings call on November 14th as well, but they're going to do it after market close. We'll get Verano in the morning before market opens, and then we'll get TerrAscend after market close on the 14th. So with that, some news out of Syracuse.com. New York just dropped guidance for the state's first retail weed dispensaries, and so good to see them getting the ball rolling slowly but surely as well, as the Office of Cannabis Management today published guidelines for New York's first cannabis retail license holders, clearing a significant goalpost in the state's effort to commence weed sales this year. As OCM's rules laid out in a 27-page document, which I'll put in the description, that New York Cannabis Insider reviewed Friday afternoon, govern conditional adult use retail dispensaries and are effective immediately. So you can pause to read a bit more why and what they entail. While scrolling down, just a reminder that in an interview earlier this month, Gov. Hochul said that the state's plan to have 20 conditional adult use retail dispensaries open by the year's end is still on track, and to expect another 20 to open every month or so after that. And so that's positive to hear. And so this at least reinforces why this guidance came out, because hopefully they can keep their word and remain on track. And so with that though, just wanted to share this because shortly after reading the guidelines late afternoon on Friday, Kaylin Castetter, managing director of consulting firm Castetter Cannabis Group, said the document OCM promulgated seems mostly good and pretty standard, but he thinks one section could cause serious problems. And so get this, a little bit more on this in the next story, but the guidelines said retail dispensaries, true parties of interest, passive investors, and service providers cannot have interest in any businesses in or outside of New York that cultivates, processes, or distributes weed. So from my understanding, anyone that owns a retail dispensary cannot own shares in any cannabis company or cannot have any ownership in any sort of way to any cannabis company that is operating outside of the state of New York. And so it sounds like anyone operating an MSO couldn't open a Roth IRA and invest in these MSOs, which sounds like horseshit. That's my understanding. I could be wrong, though, so let me know in the comments if you get a different interpretation. But that rule effectively bars vertically integrated multi-state operators from cannabis retail in New York, or at least basically bars, from my understanding, small business owners and minority entrepreneurs from vertically integrating in the state. But I don't see how MSOs wouldn't be, safeguarded from this. Now, again, I don't know, could be wrong. Let me know in the comments if you know differently. But he says, I see what they're trying to do, but it's very protectionist approach. Castetter said what it basically says is if you are in business in any other state, unless you only own a dispensary in another state, you can't be part in any way, shape, or form a retailer here. It's very anti-MSO and ultimately very anti-cannabis. And so it's a breaking story. It's quite new. We will share more developments as we go along, but just wanted to share this from a different perspective. So Jeff Schultz, thank you for sharing this. Dispensaries will be open until midnight in New York City, which is a big win. And this, again, I think featured in that 27-page doc that will be in the description. And so this is at least one considerable positive. Hours of operation is they're going to be extended as many people want to travel to New York, and they're going to be up late. But for the bad news, which we just saw featured, and again, Twitter, why are you saying that this is sensitive content? But highlighting what that person just said in that recent article. Now for the bad news. While I understand the attempt to regulate New York adult use like alcohol, this is simply totally unworkable on so many levels. I don't know where to begin. So you can pause to read for more info, and while I will update the stories, we get more definitive answers. Let this be another prime example of lawmakers and regulators fucking up a good thing before it can even get started. And so with that, on to this one from the Office of Medical Cannabis Use. Looking at this past week from October 24th to the 28th in Florida, we see that Liberty Health Sciences, backed by Air Wellness, opened up a new location in Lake Worth. If we check out the qualified patient counts in Florida, they increased their qualified patient count to 761,973, which represents an increase week over week of 2,242. So good to see, again, the patient growth number get back up into the 2,000 range. And then if we scroll down, looking at dispensations from October 21st to the 27th, we can see all the MSOs that operate in the state of Florida, the number of active dispensary locations they have in operation, and then the number of milligrams of THC sold, milligrams of CBD sold, and ounces of smokable flower sold for the past week. And so you can check week over week which MSOs are either increasing or decreasing their market share. And if I do end up seeing an updated Pierre Gilles Florida comp sheet, I will put that in the description below so that you can just grab that and check it out. And so with that, a few more stories to highlight. Marijuana Moment, thank you for sharing, as cannabis legalization drives huge dip in Detroit drug raids, top officials say. Good news, as obviously when you don't need to raid for cannabis, you can use all those resources to raid for other actual, far more dangerous, addictive, and harmful substances. Well, cannabis raids used to make up a large percentage of our drug enforcement activities. Yeah, no doubt, when you no longer criminalize something, you realize that you have a lot of resources that can go to other, more useful approaches. And so with that, I wanted to share some snippets from investment firms to round this out. So thanks, Todd Harrison, for sharing this one. This is V8 Capital on U.S. cannabis. So Q3 2022 MSO preview, looking at a catalyst-rich fall and winter, potentially, and so a lot more information if you wanted to pause to read here, but they claim MSO valuations remain attractive after the Biden rescheduling rally, and we will see how things play out, but the stage does seem to be set for something to happen. And so with that, wanted to share this one from Jesse Redmond. Thank you, Jesse, for sharing what Cowen has to say on U.S. cannabis flower prices. Very interesting graphic. New Mexico is the only market up year over year, while Michigan has seen a 61.2% decline, which is tough to deal with, but of course, the more outlets that you can open, at least that is the best way to combat decreasing prices, because then you're at least combating the illicit market, which is still probably getting a lot of the cannabis revenue compared to the legal one. While cannabis prices falling, while inflation rises, continues to be one of our primary challenges. And so more information on here. You can see the outlier is New Mexico, as they recently did launch their adult use program in April of this year, I believe. But for the rest of the markets, not faring so well. Hopefully this will change in Illinois when they open more dispensaries and get those 185 licenses approved. Will drive the prices down, but it will drive more overall sales, again, from the illicit market. And so lots of room for change and improvement, but pause here if you wanted to read that. So last few, we just wanted to share this one from Zane Stedman. Thank you for making this graph, Shane, and sharing it with us. Noticing outsized quarter-over-quarter growth from the subscale players with a disproportional impact from New Jersey's ramp-up, but surprised to see the expected gross margin improvements mostly across the board, while mixed EBITDA margin improvements. Does this resonate, or what am I missing? And so just wanted to share what he put together here. And so the sources, company filings, and Adam Finance. So thanks, Zane, for making this. So essentially just highlighting with Q3 earnings coming up, how have expectations changed since New Jersey's highly anticipated launch? And so what's the expected quarter-over-quarter progress, and how much have the estimates fallen since April 2021? In other words, how has the New Jersey CRC's year of incompetence affected these MSO sales and EBITDA margins? And unfortunately, they've been affected, but better late than never, and the sooner they can open more legal outlets to combat the illicit market, I think it will help drive a lot more sales for all these MSOs operating in the state. And so last one, this one comes from Isaac Boltansky at BTIG, so thanks, Todd, for sharing this so I can share it with all of you. We continue to believe there is both a will and a way to get cannabis banking legislation to the president's desk by year end. And so they're optimistic. Why not? But so you can pause to read Cannabis Policy, Where Are We Now? This is a Washington Policy Industry Report, so it covers expert call takeaways. CSA review is serious, but will likely take time. Obviously, rescheduling carries some complications. Other avenues look likelier, while cannabis banking commentary a bit on that. So you can pause to read this last snippet here. How do recent deal announcements dovetail with the policy discussion, and why we remain bullish on safe banking in the lame duck? And so we remain bullish on cannabis banking legislation for 5 primary reasons. there is a renewed urgency on the issue given the recent string of violence in cannabis shops. In other words, if you don't solve the problem exacerbates and gets bigger, and that's hence why we could have passed SAFE 18 months ago. There is no appetite whatsoever for comprehensive reform at this time, which leaves targeted measures as the logical legislative fallback. And again, hoping for a red wave, which will force the Dems' hand in actually getting something done. There are serious conversations regarding the merits of advancing restorative justice measures, HOPE Act, and VA research as a means of assuaging progressive concerns regarding the cannabis banking bill. We will continue to track discussion during the lame duck. And there are clear legislative vehicles, including the best shot on goal, which is the annual defense bill, the NDAA, which Schumer pulled safe out of last year, unfortunately, because he works for Big Pharma, not the American people. And the reaction to the White House's policy announcement in early October demonstrated the political power of the issue. And so how could we be wrong about cannabis banking in the lame duck? Pause to read. You can grab the link below otherwise if you wanted to read that. And so we're just going to exit this, and there's one more down here. On the GTI Grows Circle K Canopy USA deal. And so between the White House's policy announcement and substantive discussions on Capitol Hill, testing the contours of the status quo at this time is understandable. And so basically, again, it seems like Canopy says, fuck it, we're just going to go for it and see what we can get. How do recent deal announcements dovetail with the policy decision? So more here if you want to pause to read. All links are available in the description. But that is it for today's episode, folks. I want to thank you so much for tuning in, and I really hope you got some value out of it. What did you think of the stories mentioned? Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or suggestions, and I'd be happy to address them. But besides that, if you enjoyed this video and you learned something, please just leave a like on it. Subscribe below if you don't want to miss any future videos, and I'll catch you on Wednesday for a midweek update. Have a great weekend, everybody.